Boom. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We've got bunches of poets here today. Welcome into Facebook, YouTube. Make sure you give it a thumbs up or a heart and a comment while we're and subscribe if you're on YouTube as well while we're at it. And I'll say that now and I'll say it again later. Welcome to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. I'm Thundercloud. Mum calls me James. I've been away, but I'm back on the game. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Yeah, happy endings for just $20. Right, we've got, we're going to acknowledge the First Nations people first, move on to that serious business and the connection to the country of the Kamilaroi and the Bamboi people around here, and acknowledge sovereignty's never been ceded and recognise the continuing connection of those, the elders past, present and emerging to the land. I've been up on Minjerribah, formerly known as Stradbroke Island, or hopefully it will be formerly known. Fraser Island's been renamed Kagari officially now.
Is it?
Yes. K''Gari. And Minjerribah, Minjerribah is how you spell that. So, and while I was up there, I had 2 poets' breakfasts. The first day I recited Oodgeroo Noonuccal, Kath Walker's Municipal Gums as a tribute to her because it was her island that I was on. But what was even more exciting was the lyrics coming out of, the poetry coming out of current First Nations people that I heard from, from the island. Some of her, younger ancestors.
Hello, Josh.
And what else? And then there was a young Yugambeh fellow from the Gold Coast who had these just incredible lyrics as well. So, and then as well as that, all the poets at the Poets' Breakfast. I met a guy who just finished his thesis the day before the weekend on poetry. Ivan Levin. He's a young Russian fellow, but very fluent in English, of course, to have finished his honours thesis. Poetry, literature and surrealism. So yeah, he was a very interesting yarn, and plus all the other people, the Kuranda poets, FAUXMO, FAUXMO.
What are they like? Are they many
brilliant, yeah.
Up above Cairns?
Yeah.
Any idea how long they've been?
While, eh?
Yeah, been going well.
Yeah.
A few poets from up there.
Quite a while, yeah.
Spectacular place to do.
And then all these other young poets that just came out of the woodwork at the festival, that in that whole hour, by the end of the hour, there was more poets than actually got on. So it was really fantastic to see, and I made a lot of connections with those people up there as well. But the even better thing, I went book shopping there in Brisbane while I was up there. I got into Bent Books in West End, one of their second-hand bookshops, and then Avid Reader. Avid Reader was a bit of a boon. I ended up with a lot of UQ Press books, and I'll be reading out some of them tonight. And I've made tonight I guess it's a dedication to Oodgeroo Noonuccal once again, because she is my favourite poet. And in doing that, she was the first female First Nations poet to publish first Nations poet to publish a whole poetry book, and female. And
marvellous photograph of her.
Yeah, and then in that, because I've been away, I got Jazz Money, who's a Wiradjuri poet. She was the winner of the David Unipen Award, I think, in 2013. How to Make a Basket, I'll be reading one out of that. And Ellen Van Neerven's second book, Throat, which is also winner of the Victorian Premier's Literary Award, a finalist in the Queensland Literary Award, and I think she also won the Premier's Award in New South Wales for this one. Plus, for her first book, she won the David Unipen Award. So Ellen Van Neerven's a very accomplished writer and poet. plus also the the editor. Is she the editor of Hit and Light or something? No, something else anyway. Right. So I'll just get on to the poetry. Hey. Yeah, and I was going to start with Oodgeroo. And one of the things was about Oodgeroo Noonuccal was in 1984 she was a member of a 5-member cultural delegation to China with historian Manning Clark, who went with her, wrote of her, "China worked a great miracle in her. She had not written any poetry for years. Within 48 hours of arriving in Shanghai, a light began to shine in her eyes. She began to sparkle. She bubbled with excitement. I remember the morning she said to me with an engaging twinkle in her eye, 'Manning, I'm pregnant again.' She meant that she'd started to write poems again. The poems from China were published in both English and Chinese, and accompanied by its Chinese translation. They were written in China at that time. And it was a time when the Chinese people were feeling particularly optimistic about their future. The anti-academic influence of the so-called Cultural Revolution was over, and the schools and universities were reopened and encouraging international contacts. English had long replaced Russian as the preferred second language for Chinese students. The Australian delegation was one of many groups then touring the country and experiencing the warmth of Chinese interest and the enthusiasm of the belief that a better future beckoned. So this was 84, so it would have been, Hawke was in then, wasn't he? Right, so this is one called Reed Flute Cave. I didn't expect to meet you in Guilin, my rainbow serpent, my earth mother, but you were there in Reed Flute Cave with animals and reptiles and all those things you stored in the dream time. Pools of cool water like mirrors reflecting your underbelly, the underground storage place where frogs store their water in their stomachs, and mushrooms and every type of fruit, vegetable, animals and fish are on display. Perhaps I've strayed too long in this beautiful country. The reed flutes are playing a mournful tune. The cool air rushing through the rock cathedral reminds me of the sea breezes of Stradbroke in Jereba. And the reed flute seems to be capturing the scene, the slippery earth floor. Take me back to mud sea flats, where seaweeds communicate with oysters, fish and crabs. Have you travelled all this way to remind me to return home? Uluru, your resting place in Australia, will not be the same without you. I shall return home, but I'm glad I came. Tell me, my rainbow serpent, was there just one of you? Perhaps now I have time to think. Perhaps you are but one of many guardians of Earth's peoples. Just one, my rainbow serpent, spirit of my Earth Mother, of my Mother Earth. That's it. Now this one is Jazz Money at the moment. I've got a couple of customers out there. Can you go and just tell them that Susan, please, that I'm busy and I'll be out to see them in 5 minutes, or they can come in here if they want. Yeah. One of them wants to buy a shirt. I know, he's put it aside, he went to get his money. Alright, so Jazz Money, how to make a basket. Jazz Money is a poet and artist of Wiradjuri heritage. currently based on sovereign Gadigal land. Her poetry has been published widely and reimagined as murals, installations, digital interventions and film. Jazz's poetry has been recognised with the David Unipen Award and the Auntie Kerry Reid Gilbert Poetry Prize, the University of Canberra Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Poetry Prize, a Copyright Agency First Nations Fellowship, a First Nations Emerging Career Award from the Australian Council for the Arts. How to Make a Basket is her first book. And I've selected one poem out of this called Moreton Bay Fig. My Moreton Bay fig, forever roots mine, the ripple of the surface of us two, some great sea creature breaching the soil beneath our feet, red dirt, feet work into red dirt grey, roots spiny backed lover, earth your self-indispensable earthing deep, immovable, ancient ridges that flesh pressed against remembers, cool grey, ridges of flesh, roots stretching to curl around each other, wrapped, warm, red dirt. And interesting about these is they're very much form poems. So if you have a look at that form there, and then you go over the page, and you've got sort of this split poem and these kinds of things here. So it's
great monotony of the way it's printed, eh?
It's a very interesting read, and what for me, what it says, I guess in a way, what's called How to Make a Basket. It's kind of like they're woven, but baskets, if it's a nice basket, it's very interesting. But at the same time, I get that in this deliberate structure or deconstruction of the structure of traditional English language and poetry that she's approaching is pushing this anti-colonial, fuck English's rules. Don't follow the rules kind of stuff. So it's quite lovely writing, and it's worth a read. So it's here for you to have a look at. Okay, now before I get on to Throat by Ellen van Neerven, because the one I'm going to read out of this by Ellen van Neerven is Queens, and it's written for Candy Royale, and I'll read Candy Royale's first. But Ellen van Neerven was born in Yanjin, Brisbane, 1990. She's an award-winning writer. She's of Mananjali, Yugambeh and Dutch heritage. Her first book, Heat and Light, got the David Unipen Award, the Dobie Literary Award, the New South Wales Premier's Award, the Indigenous Writers Prize, Ellen's second book of poetry collection. Comfort Food was shortlisted for the New South Wales Premier's Literary Award, the Kenneth Slessor Prize, highly commended for the 2016 Wesley Michael Wright Prize, and Throat is her second book here. So I'll read Candy Royale's A Trillion Tiny Awakenings first, or recite it because I'm pretty good at it. I'm supposed to be able to do this off by heart by now. Listen to this non-prophet, this high priestess of poetry. No more hatred, just love. We are pure love. We are pure love. And this gathering every gathering is sacred. Listen. Candy Royale. Simple and effective. Yeah. Queens for Candy Royale. Now, one thing about Candy Royale, I've got a bit of pinched shoulders. I do have sometimes think about. One thing about
pinch it off.
Pinch it off. Yeah. Yeah. One thing about Candy Royale. So she was a queer poet. She was also Palestinian. So very extremely political. So yeah. Queens for Candy Royale. Read my terms and conditions. We all carry wars within us. There was a time where I was into perfection. I was outside of myself. The spiritual work didn't get done. I learnt to fear fear. I buried mountains. I didn't know that I was just beginning and that all of our stories are really about finding a connection that will help the pain, and that we all lead back to rivers and flow into the sea, and we breathe with our mothers and heartbeat with our grandmothers. Despite what is against us, we make excellent choices and are deserving of the fullest and warmest love. This is the time of night where we can ask ourselves, how much would we do without fear? Nice, eh? Yeah.
Using fear as a motivation.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it for my reading of First Nations poets tonight. So, well, Gabriel, would you like to come on up first?
If you like.
Yes.
Anybody want to go before?
One thing while you're on, we've got the hypnotism show coming up next Friday too. So don't forget that. Tickets are available online. Yeah. Yes. All right, Gabriel.
Friday this week or next week?
Saturday next week, the 12th of November.
James, find me that Myra Spoon book if you can get it from me.
I shall.
I'll bring one out there tonight. I'll take you. If I can't, Steve, I can't think, mate.
Right.
Do something with me.
Hi again, everybody. I've just spent nearly a month performing in the stage version of 1984, and it's done a lot of strange things to my head. Because
Send you back to God and Milton.
well, exactly. Because when I first came here, I thought, oh, this is a really good expose of the Inquisition. But then when I started playing the character, I thought, oh, hang on a minute, there's something here. And it's another story. But for this evening, I will just harvest some fruits, and good and evil, God and Satan, archetypes as long as human history. And so in the first one, I'll quote from what some people reckon is the classic English language poet, John Milton of Paradise Lost, and where he's trying to empathise with what it feels like to be Satan. And then in the second one, I've got a revised version of one I've read out here before, of trying to initially explain, or not explain, but describe going from hopelessness to hope. So here we go. This is Satan having a little moan. He's about to decide to go and tempt Adam and Eve, but he's not sure if he can persuade the rest of the devils that they should come along with him. And he's grumbling about what God did to him in throwing him down to hell. Me miserable, which way shall I fly? Infinite wrath and infinite despair? Which way I fly is hell. I myself am hell, and in the lowest deep a lower deep. still threatening to devour me, opens wide. To which the hell I suffer seems a heaven. Oh then, at last relent. Is there no place left for repentance? None for pardon left? None left but my submission. And that word disdain forbids me, and my dread of shame among the spirits beneath, whom I seduced with other promises and other vaunts, than to submit, boasting I could subdue the omnipotent army. They little know how dearly I abide that boast so vain, under what torments inwardly I groan, while they adore me on the throne of hell, with diadem and sceptre high advanced, the lower still I fall, only supreme in misery. Such joy ambition finds. But say I could repent, and could obtain by act of grace my former state, how soon would height recall my thoughts, how soon unsay what feigned submission swore, else would recant vows made in pain, as violent and void, for never can true reconcilement grow, where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep, which would but lead me to a worse relapse and heavier fall. So should I purchase dear short intermission, bought with double smart. This knows my punisher, therefore, as far from granting he as I from begging peace. All hope excluded thus, behold instead of us outcast, exiled, his new delight, mankind, created and for him this world. So farewell hope, and with hope farewell fear, farewell remorse, all good to me is lost. Evil, be thou my good. By thou at least, divided empire with heaven's king I hold. By thee, and more than half perhaps, will reign, as man ere long, and this new world shall know.
Oh.
Well done.
John Milton. What you don't, people don't know, one of these trivial things they don't know about John Milton is he had nearly as many wives as Henry VIII. Very different kind of
I'm Henry VIII, I am.
similar.
And they were both Latin scholars.
Well, a lot of people were in those days. More of them spoke good Latin than spoke good English. So here's the other one mine, which I did the first version of, and here's the second version. I've renamed it as the Then Krakow Awakes, which is a skit on The Kraken Awakes, a famous sci-fi, I think, based on, was it Perseus and Andromeda, and the Kraken is the monster in the sea. Okay. In the last 200 years, we have multiplied our fears. Each advance in our technology failed to improve our psychology. Though we stepped up our velocity, we made new hells with each atrocity. On paper, enhancing human rights, in practice, worsening human plights. How would any fair onlooker sense progress in Earth's pressure cooker? Yes, we took man to the moon. Yes, we will return there soon. Yes, the Nazis were defeated. Yes, bacterial foes retreated. Yes, women from oppression rose. Yes, support for greenness grows. But tell me this, Chief Clappy Chappy, why are so many so unhappy? The situation is so sad. Humanity seems to be so bad. Easy to believe the worst of every new encounter. Cursed, our eyes that see thick black smoke from smiling mouths of ruling folk. We have built up new protection to stop malevolent detection. We live through lockdowns behind screens which shield us from mere threats of screams and freeze our hearts at scenes of slaughter, down-drained babies with bath water. Pray, from this dystopian plane, can we re-aspire to kindness plain? Can we discern among the rubble people who transcend their trouble? Could we in our daily living find pleasure in justly giving? Could we, like the Polish nation, through compassion draw salvation? Neighbours, read us, make us see authentic good in you and me.
Thank you.
Well, You have a visionary view of the Polish nation.
Oh, right, yeah. I'm keep being tempted to pull it out, but then I'd have to re-sew the centre of it a bit.
All right. I was up on the island up there, the Stradbroke Island. I had beetroot and for breakfast, and there was a little bit, and it made my paper go purple. So I drew a beetroot around it, and then a poem. Oh, beetroot is yummy, but when I eat you, the colour of beetroot stains my poo.
Very true.
That's very true.
We're all over.
Yeah, it was a short one. Yeah, and of course then I was up. I was coming back okay, and this is called Deepwater.
Oh. Great place.
I'm in deep water. Not drowning, nor waving, resting after 3 lifts, 4 actually, hitching, preceded by bus, train, bus, ferry, bus, walking, travelling 500 kilometres in a day and only 101 kilometres from home. But it's night now. It started to rain and I'm in deep water. For the past week, I've been in Queensland where the weather's been fine, sunny, between 20 and 32 degrees. It's 8:40, raining. The temperature's dropped to 10 tonight so far. I'm wearing boyish board shorts, a t-shirt, a waistcoat. I'm in deep water. But I'm dry and warm because I'm staying in a motel room in the commercial hotel in deep water. Yeah. And that's it. And by the way, that's the end of deep water. The people who've opened the commercial hotel up there, Susie and Stu, are lovely. So if you're ever passing through deep water, go and check out the top pub, and they've got $40 backpacker beds there too. And they're warm and cosy. And there's one last little bit of writing, which I've got memorised. I'm leaving deep water with wet shoes. Thank you very much.
Did you step in the deep water?
I did. So the next day I woke up, it was absolutely pissing down, and I've written a bit of poetry, and I've looked up and it was like, oh God, the bus will be here soon. I've looked out and I started walking. There comes the bus, and I'm running, and of course it's pissing down, and there's like the gutters of that fall. I've got to try and get across the gutters, and there's no way I'm going to jump that with a sore knee. So wet shoes in deep water. Yeah. All right. Steve Wordsmith, welcome back. Yeah.
How you going, James? It's really good to be here. I've just got to move this podium way out here, if that's okay, man. You know, yeah. Hey, hello to all the people in Deepwater, all my mates up there. There's some good people up there. It's a great place. Yeah, and it's good to know that you visited there, James. It's good to be back here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. I haven't been here for a little while, and yeah, interesting times. Been out and around Byron and Surfers Paradise and the places up there, such, and doing the coast, Mullumbimby, all my friends down there. Yeah, it's a lovely country we have here. It's always an interesting thing when you have to decide what you're going to put forward onto poetry and such, you know. So you know that I'm eccentric, and you know that I'm quite weird. You know that I wear a rainbow and I have a long white beard.
Oh, yes.
But if you judge the book by the cover and don't listen to my words, you'll miss the spirit's message by thinking I'm absurd. When you open up, you realise, and you realise and realise, and you realise that there's plenty of real lies in this world. See, I haven't been around the world, but I've been around the block. I don't know it all, but I know a bloody lot. I don't have a house or a place of abode. I spend most of my time on the side of the road. I'm an outback poet just moving around with my heart in the bush and my feet on the ground. I've travelled this land from the top to the bottom. I've been to the Murray. I've seen the cod rotten. I've travelled from east and I've travelled from west. I've travelled with zeal and I've travelled with zest. Yeah, what a fabulous country that we live in. People say, where do you come from? See, I was brought up in the country in a place called Wedderburn, on the side of the Georges River with the stags and the elks and the ferns. There wasn't many luxuries, no, things weren't very plush. But we had this long drop dunny called the orifice of the bush. There's one thing that I know for sure, and I spent a lot of time just doodling in the dirt there, and I even wrote some rhyme. A place to fantasise and figure out, but everything was true. A hideout from the washing up like young lads often do. I'd always lift the lid up to avoid a bit of fright, to eradicate the chances of the dreaded redback bite. Like mum's old chook, I'd settle in with me pants around me knees to the sound of the neighbour's rampant bull and fruit bats in the trees. Like a medieval king, I'd sit upon his gilded throne, my favourite place, I must admit, in our lovely country home. Yes, I'm a connoisseur of dunnies, of this it is a fact. A place to try, a place to check, before I hang my hat. I remember when I left the bush in the council house in town, there was an outhouse out the back. Yeah, a place to settle down. It wasn't quiet as our country home, but it had all the mods and cons. Running water, electric light, and an oven to cook scones. I'd only been there a week, I think, when I awoke with an awful fright. There was a shadow past the window in the middle of the night. I'd heard about these prowlers and their low-down thieving tricks, but they'd taken on the wrong bloke this time, this lad from out the sticks. Well, I hit the floor running. There wasn't time to put on clothes. I'll get that flaming larrikin and I'll probably break his nose. The blood was pumping fast when he was running up the footpath with his booty on his back. I'd played rugby in his school days and I'd stop him in his track. Well, I hit him round the ankles and he had nowhere to go. Yeah, I dropped him like a dummy lid. And all he said was, "No!" The smell was something awful. I'd never live it down. I'd nailed the poor old dunny man and I dropped him on the ground. There was excretion all across the grass and right across the road. The lid had left the dunny can and he dropped a flaming load. Well, throughout my years of wandering, I think I've tried the lot. There's the environmental sound ones, there's flush lavatories, and there's pots. There's collectors of pubs, of pins, of bottle stamps and plants. But I'm the international, no, universal secretary of the place you drop your pants. I've tested loos across this land and I've tried the loos abroad. There's the ones you pull the chain on, there's authentic ones, and there's frauds. But there's nothing in comparison when you have to strain and push as a good old Aussie dunny and the orifice of the bush. That's something that I wrote for the Oracles of the Bush when we first started way back 25 years ago. I wrote that and they didn't like it because it was a shit house. You talk about those sorts of things, you know. But anyway, it's good to hear you doing some of the mob poetry and such, James, and I do one there that I met many years ago. I saw a bloke called Jack, something, do it. And I thought, that's a good poem, I'll do it. I met him first near Warren working on a starved out farm. He was skeletor and sallow, lean of shank and long of arm, wide lips and flared out nostrils that bespoke his native blood. A battler, scratching hard existence in this land of drought and flood. But he won a tight survival chasing rabbits day and night. He had no gun nor ammunition. Used to knock him out and flight with a waddy for a weapon. Junk or rock was just the same. And he'd grab that groggy bunny and he'd say, that was deadly aim. Seldom off his target, gave those feelers a little rest in them knock 'em sock 'em alleys in the showground out the west. The day that I enlisted, he was standing next to me and I heard him tell the captain that his name was Darky Lee. Oh, often quiet and moody, lonely in the crowd, no doubt, or perhaps the dip of colour made him feel the odd man out. But he was a willing soldier, and a dinkum cobber too, like the night the MPs caught us at that Skye game in the loo. Yeah, he nailed that provost sergeant cold as any side of meat, with a well-aimed whiskey bottle at the range of 20 feet. Mighty quick we were escaping, and I heard our mate exclaim, as we scarpered through the alleys, fellas, that was deadly aim. Then our mob embarked for service to a land across the sea, where the final call awaited for that bloke called Darky Lee. It was at the Flanders dust-up in a place called Blardner's Court. We copped a bad position. Yeah, men cut off without support, and that enemy machine gun keeping up a steady fire, safe and sound in their encampment beyond barricade and wire. Flat we lay like bloody lizards on that piece of shell-raped plain, and that enemy machine gun pelted lead like summer rain. Well, our choice was die like heroes, or the white surrender flag, when our officer decided it was time to sky the rag, take your choice, a German prison, or a group of unmarked mounds, when this bloke goes racing past me like a hare before the hounds strike me blue, but it was Darky. Like an emu crouching low, in his right hand was a grenade swinging ready for the throw. No cover to protect him, dashing, daring as you please, where those Mitchell houses chattered and the bullets hummed like bees, and fair into that enemy gun pit he dispatched his first grenade. Screams were heard from brave men dying as that scarlet blossom burst. Then he sent him up another just as quickly as the first, German gunner or rabbit. It was all the same to our champion Bundy chucker. He maintained his deadly aim. Then a dying spurt of gunfire rang the bell on Darky Lee. By the time the medics got there, he was very nearly gone, though his belly parts were punctured, his heart was hanging on, and in final grief we listened to the gasp that shook his frame, and the final words he uttered, fellas, that was dead again. Just another unsung hero gone unhallowed and unsung, one of many number when the final curtain rung. Native son with small ambition, oh, our heart's decree, a soldier in the true tradition, rest untroubled, Darky Lee. Thank you, James. I'll just finish off with a little bit, something a bit lighter there, you know. There once was a shearer by the name of Bluey the Brink. He was a devil for work and a devil for drink. He could shear his 200 a day without fear and drink without winking 4 gallons of beer. Now, Jimmy the barman who served out the drink, he just hated the sight of here Bluey the Brink. He stayed much too late and he came much too soon, in the morning and the night and the daytime and at noon. Well, one day when Jimmy was cleaning the bar with sulphuric acid that he kept in a jar, old Bluey come yelling and bawling with thirst, "Whatever you've got, Jim, just give me the first." Well, it ain't in the histories and it ain't put in print, but Bluey drank acid with never a stint. Said, "That's the stuff, Jimmy, will strike me stone dead. That'll make me the ringer of Stevenson shed." Well, all that long day as he served out the beer, poor Jimmy was worried with his troubles and fear. Too worried to argue, too anxious to fight. All he could see was this corpse in his fright. Well, early next morning as he opened the door, along came the shearer. He was yelling for more, with his eyebrows all singed and his whiskers deranged, and holes in his hide like a dog with the mange. Said, "Jimmy, and how do you like that new stuff?" Said Bluey, "It was fine, but I ain't had enough. It gave me great courage to shear and to fight, but every cough set my whiskers alight. I thought a new drink, but I must have been wrong, for what you gave me was proper and strong. It set me to coughing, and you know I'm no liar, but every cough set my whiskers on fire." Have a lovely night. Thank you.
Are you going to do something for us tonight, Skye? Excellent, alright. Well, I was up in Brisbane the first morning I woke up, quite early. And one thing about the city, at night time it's never really dark because of the ambient light, and it's never really quiet either. But you also rarely hear birds like here. When it's quiet here, you hear the brown noise. In the city, you hear white noise. Upon awakening this fine day, the city awakes as I eat, sounds of the traffic far away, ascension of the peak hour heartbeat. Rumble grows into crescendo, some late, most on time. Fast aspersions, innuendo, arterial traffic lines. Kettles boil, toasters pop, showers spray, deodorant, line up at the coffee shop, paid in hourly increments. High visibility tradies drive, full trains leave the station, 7 to 3 or 9 to 5. What an industrious nation. Heads down in smartphones, the city hums, commute, yawns awake and moans. I'm just visiting, it's beaut. I think of bees in hives, yellow box and stringy bark trees. Making honey, the queen bee thrives on the sweat of worker bees. Motorbike burps up the street, forklift wheels silently turn, all part of the municipal heartbeat to earn and earn and earn. Lived here once, visiting now, a country town now for me. Simple things like a sheep or a cow in the open, but not free. Yeah. Okay, Skye, welcome. Do you want this or not? You don't have to. You can if you want. If you want to put your phone on or stand and read from it.
A short ones.
Okay. Security in one. Love bluster, hearts a flutter, some others, another. And others. Resistance, maleficence, jealousy bringing, hearts a strumming, true care, true love. A friendship we find, connection, reflection, fun times, happy moments, still searching and roaming, security in one, where truths are spoken, comfort in honesty, connections, reflections, the passions we love, and making life fun.
It's really sweet.
Castle named baby. Bursts forth.
Okay. The other one's probably not as sweet.
You got to try. What kind of voice do you need?
What kind of voice do I need? Okay. Meat. The meat in the middle, between the tongue and the cheek, absent of their own, for the love of torture, murder wrapped up in love, mangy chicken pie, bloody gurgling porky pig, asphyxiated fishy fingers, baby leg of lamb, cut throat of cow, staked on your plate, juiciness of death, mouth full of flesh, drained of its life, soul within a body, experiences a knife, slashed across the throat, pining for ma, to be snuzzled at her bosom, mother's milk cold dairy stolen from her baby, mastitis in her udder, full of bloody pus, menstruated omelettes, males grind dead daily, honey vomit treats stolen from their babies, karma for the many, guinea pigs of plenty, sold dis-ease is ate, condemned upon the plate, hell cast on this planet earth by hands of human many, and the greed of money's great, for treats of inhumanity and taste that's unhumane.
What was the last one? What's the last one?
Unhumane.
Taste. Yeah.
experience.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's like reading a Peter Singer book.
That's a good comment.
It is, isn't it? It's true. I mean, that's where I learned about all of that stuff. Yeah. And somehow I managed to turn off that and not think about it when I do read a bit of it. But I totally get where you're coming from. It's just such a cruel industry. I almost wanted, actually, I could probably do my Melbourne Cup one. I wasn't even going to do my Melbourne Cup one, but fuck it, like, you've inspired me. Like, oh yeah, fuck it, like, seriously, like, yeah, no, I've got to do it. Because, like, it's cruel.
Yeah.
No, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. It's called, I'm not flogging a dead horse, I'm giving it CPR.
When did you write this?
Yesterday morning, on the day of the Melbourne Cup, I feel for the horses that run around. I've got to say fuck a few times in this one. So, language one. I feel for the horses that run about race courses. The jockeys always whack the horse along the track. That poor horse suffers pain. Just to fucking entertain. Sad? No, I'm fucking mad that every fucking year in November that all I hear about the Melbourne Cup and want to shout, fuck your fucking cup, stop beating the fucking horses up so wankers can have a piss up. End of it. Yeah. I'm not flogging a dead horse, I'm giving it CPR. But anyway, look, and yes, I have, in the past, I have gone into sweeps and I have gambled on the Melbourne Cup too. But, yeah, no, I do really get that shit, yeah. No, it's, and honestly, I just get sick of seeing all those fucking wankers, like, falling over pissed on the race course. Yeah, it's disgusting.
Like the Governor General in 1975.
Okay, yeah. But look, that wasn't really what I was gonna do. I wanted to do this other one, which was then the answer to that first one I just wrote in the city, and this was later on in that day. And it came out more like a ballad, this one, with a couple of what do you call it? Choruses. Old stockwhips have torn many hides. Old saddles have smelt many backsides. Old horses have grazed acres of grass. Old stockmen have seen many sunsets pass. And the silence of home is calling me. Here in the hustle of bustling Brizzy, I think of the ducks and the cockatoo sounds. Here hums industrial noise all around. Old gum trees have hosted new life. Old cattle dogs work on and they thrive. Old fences are repaired and replaced. Old farmers tell stories of the struggles they've faced. And the smell of the bush is calling me. Hearing the exhaust fumes of old Brizzy. Thinking of morning walks by the lagoon. Here there's a smoggy haze each afternoon. Old windmills have filled many troughs. Old fire embers smoke quietly wafts. Old ladders have had many feet on their runs. Old bush poet verses are sung. And Gyre, my home is calling me. I hear it over the din of metropolitan Brizzy. Thinking of that clean mountain air all around. Peace and quiet isn't in the city to be found. That's song I wrote. You just need some music to it, that one.
It worked very well as it was.
Yeah, just that.
Just as it was.
Yeah,
That's how the Irish used to often sing.
You
yeah.
could have had an Irish whistle in there or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So, Ashley, we could
Well, let us see what is to be seen. I'm disturbed by all the slaughter. Even though I used to watch my daughter hoe into great racks of lamb. I will begin with our new idea, our new format. Oh, I was putting these on to be impressive. I thought so. Well, loveliest of trees, the cherry now, is hung with bloom along the bough, and stands about the woodland ride, wearing white for Easter tide. Now of my 70 years and 10, 20 shall not come again, and take from 70 springs a score, it only leaves me 50 more. And since to see the things that bloom, 50 springs are little room. About the woodland I will go to see the cherry hung with snow. That is generally considered, when they have tests and surveys of the English about poetry, that nearly always comes up as their most favourite poem. Well, back to my format. I'm so overcome with A. Houseman that I've forgotten what this stands for. Or this stands for. Or this stands for. A man without plastic erection. Now, I thought that would get a good laugh. I did too. I had to stay silent and not laugh with the laughter. Isn't that the funniest thing? That's the warm gestures of the born actor. Now, what have I been reading? I remember once in a lecture on Australian history, one of the women in our tutorial started talking about Catherine Helen Spence's novel, Clara Morrison. And I am halfway through, but I'll be looking in the mirror of it forever. It was published in Adelaide in 1854, and it is an extraordinary thing. Clara Morrison. She used to be on the $5 note, Catherine Helen Spence, but she's one of the most significant figures in whitefella Australasian history. Now, the other day, because it was so wet, and I realised that the rims of Apsley Falls would be just tumescent with throbbing columns of water, I went over, not thinking that this was going to happen. It was about 2:30 in the arvo, and it did. And if there are moments of epiphany, this was it for me. Because I know my life story, and I didn't look for this to happen, but it did. There you are, rainbow serpent. The indigo purple spreads to reddish brown. From Apsley Falls flooding, you bending up and away, infinite without edge, to salute against black slate canyon walls. Wonder yonder, eyes I join. In time to come I'll do some paintings for that, and I'll bring them along and I'll perch them there, and that one-eyed psychedelic critic can look at them. And yes, I could end at Slate Canyon Walls. Wonder yonder I ponder, but I won't. I'll just end to salute against black slate canyon walls. Wonder yonder, eyes I join. It was quite extraordinary because I closed my eyes like I do in an art gallery, and I opened the aperture to counts of 10 to see different forms, lines of colour emerge out of the spume of the waterfall. And it was a really extraordinary experience. It lasted for about almost an hour, Steve.
What did you take beforehand?
In future I'll have a little addendum to this poem, which will just say the tribe of that area believe that the rainbow serpent starts under the hospital, just where the water is at the hospital in Walker, and she or he or it comes, and in a flood time with the falls, the rainbow will emerge. And boy, was it, well, I hope I communicated something of that. I have been making a study of South Australia, and one thing I would recommend, on YouTube there's a Channel 7 2.5-hour documentary about South Australia and Adelaide particularly, made in 1982. And there's one moment that relates to Guyra and relates to the world. There's a section in the 2.5 hours on transport, and the fellow talking says, when ore and wheat and wool and tallow and hides were coming by rail to a port, by rail and then to sail, S-A-I-L, not S-A-L-E. That was the most cost-effective moment of Australian transport, export and import out, when those things came by rail and they went out by sail. And then he stopped and he looked at the camera back in 1982 and he said, we need to remember this because in future times energy may become constrained. So that's my little bit of sermon for the night. But I was amazed in 1982. The Adelaide people, as I can imagine, they would have thought through many things to right into the end of this century. And he stood there and he talked about rail and then to sail was the most long-term cost-effective method of taking things out for export and building our country economic. And then he stopped and he said, you know, you may have to remember this in time to come. We may become energy constrained, and it looks as though on this planet the only people who've got good caches of energy and minerals are the Russians, the only ones. So we're really going to become energy constrained no matter what sort of deal we make with them to cut up the pie. And I think this continent is immensely rich in, much richer than is given. I think that's why all the big empires are fighting so bitterly to hold.
They didn't give it away, don't they?
They're all, well, we give it away, but all the big empires are fighting bitterly here to control it. US, the English and the Chinese. But we've known that was coming many, many years ago. I will finish with a poem by Geoffrey Dutton, who I always say as I launch into a paean from his work, P-A-E-N, paean from his work, that is really one of the great underrated Australian writers and cultural figures. Even though in his life he burned bright on the horizon. I will give a couple of comments about this. I've read it maybe 15 times in the last 9 or 10 days. And each time I felt like I'm squeezing a sponge out of which nothing comes. But it's an infinite sponge. It's an extraordinary poem. And I've given it to friends to read, and I've talked to people about it, and I've looked up wiki articles on the pheasant image, and I said to someone yesterday, why does he talk about the Humber and the Austin? And this is very significant. They said, oh, the Humber was the car that the upper class could drive and afford, and the Austin was an ordinary person's car. And one other comment I would make about it, Thurberton, as a suburb in Adelaide, just lies outside the box of Colonel Light's original surveying that laid down the grid of that wonderful, perplexing city. Anyway, the poem is called Thurberton Hall, and he talks quite a lot about Thurberton Hall. I remember in his autobiography, Out in the Open, which I recommend to all. Geoffrey Dutton's Out in the Open is very revealing, not least the impact that a great poet can have on a culture, and in this case William Butler Yeats, between the two world wars, because he gave an image of something that wasn't of the British Empire but was powerful and great and voiced with alacrity. So I've given that a big pedestal, but it's a strange poem, and the more I think about it, the more I relate it to James. It reminds me of James in some strange way. Anyway, here goes. Thurberton Hall, in brackets, childhood home of William Light, founder of Adelaide. And incidentally, his father founded Penang, and he was born at Penang of a Malayan girl. And it's interesting that later on, after actions of great daring do as an aide-de-camp to General Wellington, who's popped up in the last month of my poetry exhortations, he was an aide-de-camp to Wellington who thought very highly of him. And in a couple of the Peninsular battles, he did heroic feats of war and horsemanship, Colonel Light. Here we go. He who founds a city knows the cost, that doing so he'll never find the lost city of his childhood. Yet in his grave he is the first true householder to have a freehold tenure, a soil that is his own. We owe to strangers the earth in which we've grown. They came ashore, still looking over their shoulder, irritable rather than exultant, bolder than their brothers, but usually broker too. Their worlds split like lips in a wind that blew. From a new north, summer and winter's weather, some wryly tried to join their worlds together by leaving a name to interpret what they felt, and William Light would laugh to find misspelt the name of Thurberton he gave his hut. Now rows of houses with their front doors shut, a respectable suburb known as Thurberton. They made a misprint and put an A in. In Adelaide, a city he'd begun 3 years before his birth, and got no thanks. His ghost rode with me yesterday by banks of violet and primrose in the spring scent to Thurberton in Suffolk, where he spent an uncomplicated childhood in the care of his dead father's friends. On asking where to find the hall, I heard that history had found it first. By now, most of one story had been demolished and sold off for junk. Time is a cellar where all the wine's been drunk, and the empty bottles put back on the racks or thrown in broken heaps and piled in stacked sacks. We are fools to stumble down there with a thirst. The only solution is to get drunk first. Then we need not mourn too much to see the hall a hovel, to see the ants and the grasshoppers ball, led by the strings of a spider's web in the wind. More democratic, certainly, this kind of dance, more silent than satin, cheaper than gold. The gallery's Corinthian columns stand quite cold. In the sunlight that once were cool in candle glow, stairways climb and turn and lead to nowhere but the sky. The lark trickles down song into the dry fountain. The clock is wrong in the stable yard, wrong to tell time at all. For this is the wrecker's day, when the diesel hours clank like bulldozers over the open flowers. The pheasant flies like a knight, with banners trailing over the young green field, and earthward sailing lands in glory, a dazzle of full summer in the flickering spring. An Austin and a Humber wait at the garage pumps between the hall and church. Is there any more deadly pall of funeral black than worn-out motor tyres, left in the rain and sun? What chance of the fires of the pheasant against the jets that break the sky in two to leave their drifting wake? A good thing too, the old degree is gone. The hall is far too grand for Thurberton, William Light and others like him knew Corinthian columns would be knocked askew. In his case, certain things hastened the process. No wife, no money, and tuberculosis. Neither pheasants nor fountains flourish in the earth where he lies now. Before his death, the birth of his new city was ugly and bloody, quite normal for a birth. The streets were muddy, that after his death by now are kept so clean, one wishes a little dung were sometimes seen. His city edges away from older cities, from old men muttering obscenities as they stoop to pick up cold cigarette butts from the street at the hour when the jeweller's window shuts. Very T.S. Eliot, isn't it, then? And the whores gather at corners and softly solicit the passing mail when dusk sits self-illicit. Although we say the old degree is gone, is Adelaide much lustier than Thurberton? A little touch of wowser in the night? It would not much appeal to William Light, yet we're rushing into a beautiful takeoff now, the ending here. Yet beyond his city, galah and cockatoo outflash the pheasant. There are wrens more blue than the delft tiles round the fireplace in his room. His visiting ghost would not indulge in gloom to find the wreckers at work on Thurberton Hall, to watch the stars of his childhood's wisdom fall. East, west and south, he would scarcely try to make room for them in our hard, glittering sky. Sorry, he would certainly try to make room for them in our hard, glittering sky. Yes, well, many Aboriginal ghosts live in that poem too.
Ooh, yes, very much actually.
Yeah, he wrote one about his mum. You should read, although I'm ordering you to, but he wrote one about his mum that you'd read very well. It's very moving. Oh, it's your grandma, his grandma.
Well, before I get Gladys Wilson up, if you're big, small, young, old, sweet, sour, or lots of fun, you'll get wet walking in the rain and the wind blows on everyone. And on a hot and cloudless day, there is a scorching sun which generates a photon shower and shines for everyone.
Say that again.
If you're big, small, young, old, sour, sweet, or lots of fun, you'll get walking in the rain and the wind blows on everyone. And on a hot and cloudless day, there is a scorching sun which generates a photon shower and shines for everyone.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. All right, Gladys Wilson, come on up. Gladys is going to...
Come on, Gladys. Come on.
Welcome back. Gladys.
That's funny. The photon shower.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say, welcome back, James. It is good to have James. He's sadly missed, I can tell you, but it's wonderful to have him back in one piece and safe and sound.
I don't know about that.
Because I did have reservations, you know, letting him loose.
Oh, yeah.
At any rate, he's back safe and sound. It's absolutely wonderful. But it's very good to be back in the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame and to see all you in here tonight. It's very important that we, you know, this little group, we come together and do what we love doing. But it's all possible. James has made it all possible because I'm sure most of us will be sitting at home. So, James, it's wonderful. Warm welcome back, anyhow. Thank you lots. At any rate, I've got Myra Sweeney's poem here tonight, and Myra was a pioneer of poetry. She wrote many poetry. She's a very capable person. This is one that she wrote here, well, I think some years ago, actually. But this is just today. The grey shadows of dawn have fled, and the sun comes shining through. Sparkles like a mirror of diamonds are the tiny drops of dew. This morning is so special, for it is the beginning of today, and today is time for us to stop instead of rushing along the way. We should stop and smell the roses and take time to smile, for this may be the only day that we'll see things that are worthwhile. The dewdrops may not be there tomorrow, nor the morning sun be quite so bright. There may be dark clouds on the horizon, shutting out the early morning light. We must not wait until tomorrow to tell our loved ones that we care, or to enjoy the blessing that we have, for tomorrow they may be there. Let us stop today while the roses are in bloom, and let the world go rushing past, for the things that we can see today we know forever will not last. But then also I have writing another poem at the moment, and it's the Swagman's Prayer. And now most Swagmans years ago were out on the road, and this relates to people during my time, when, you know, many people would be rushing by and the old Swagman would be under a tree. So this is just the Swagman's Prayer, and it should be up in the next week or so.
Oh, look forward to it.
So it's yes, because it's just telling the life, because most of us in those days, they travelled and most times had some sort of shelter, but most times were out in the tree, and of course a lot of them carried great swags and had their swag thrown under a tree. And I remember my mother talking about an old swagman years ago when we lived out in the country. But today we have our cars, our planes, our fast way of moving, and of course there are still, you know, in some cases there's probably still some of them out there. But so this is all like on the life of a swagman actually, and I said, so yes, it's very exciting, and I have got a lot down, so I'm going to work on it. But as I said, it is great to have James back, because, and I hope that he has enjoyed his time with his family, because families are very important. So anyhow, it's lovely to be back here tonight and have all you people in here. And it's lovely my old friend over there, but I have very good friends in this circle, and I'm very delighted and be able to move about. So I will just get out, and then that will be, as I said, coming up in the next week or two. But it's fairly writing it, I think I can ramble it off, because the old Swagman sort of, he's talking and in a prayer, and he's just, you know, wherever he is, he's wagging around and walking around and out on the open roads, and traffic probably passing by, and of course in the days of the old Cotton Case, so it should be really very interesting, so that's coming up. But it's a big thanks to James that I'm doing this, because it has been, as I said, when I like standing here is one thing, but having somebody standing behind you that helps you along the way is absolutely wonderful. So James, thank you a million.
Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. I'll let
We look forward to your book,
do it.
Gladys. We look forward to your book that's going to come out soon.
Oh yes, I know. I've got it. Yes.
Some of your poems there. So.
Yeah, thank your poems there. Yes, it's great, it's great. Yes,
and I am really grateful for everyone here who does stand behind me and support me in this place as well, and all the people out there as well. So, and Gladys especially.
No, James, thank you.
And yes, we have got all Gladys lined up to do a book once. We've got enough there too. I remember we got the format. We're going to do it in like, what do they call it, DL, so it can be stuck in an envelope and posted and everything. Yeah, like a long,
yes, that's really happening. Yes.
Anyway,
Innovation.
Yeah. Well, it's copying someone else. I'll admit plagiarising. Okay.
You're not allowed to do that, James.
Oh, look, I did it in grade 12 in English and got great marks for plagiarising a bit of the wall part too. Yeah. Anyway, I got. Well, I start with the seahorse. Yeah, all right. Because I was on the island, and like I see a lot of like plastic in the water sometimes. You know, bits of plastic and shit, and I'm washed up on the beach. So I've had messages from the seahorse again. I think I've written about 3 or 4 seahorse ones now. Anyway, one day I went for a swim in the sea. A seahorse came and spoke to me of all the things that belong in the sea. Human-made pollution ought not be. The oceans contain mounds of plastic. It's making all of my friends sick. We think humans must be thick, and you all need a backside kick. I don't like this plastic taste of your human living waste, making the seas a plastic paste. Find a solution and make haste. I said, I'll see what I can do. I'll reduce, reuse, recycle too. Pass this message on from you. Please take responsibility too. Seahorse said, "You give me hope of a future that is dope, not choked by a plastic rope. I feel as though I now can cope." The seahorse swam away freely. I caught a wave out of the sea, sat in nature under a tree and put seahorse words in this poetry. Yeah, alright, and then there's, like the last one I'm going to do today, well, thunderclouds, eh? It's called Celebrate the Tempest. Okay, it comes with a prologue, right? And you all know me, I'm the eternal optimist. You'll never get me saying a negative thing very much at all. Yeah, so very, very little actually. Yeah, if you can catch me, you'll be lucky. The tempest storms, prologue. While I love the sun and warm weather, there's no weather quite event as exciting as a storm. I love storms. If it wasn't for a storm in 2014 blowing the roof off, then I would never have bought a double-decker bus, lived in Neerven, written poetry, and now lived in Skye at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, and I probably would never have written poetry. Thank you, Thunderclouds. The tempest, celebrate the tempest. The tempest storms bring good rains. There'll be those that will suffer pains. The whirling wind whips and howls, the clear creek muddied fouls, rain is soothing in the night, sleeping sound of my delight. In the morn new life is born, change and growth, bring the storm, bring the rain, wind and blow to clean the earth. Leave a rainbow. Woo! Alright, and that's it from me. Tonight, I have got more. I have actually got this really rude one, but I'm not going to do it.
Well, we don't need that.
That's scary.
No. Oh, okay. All right. Language and concept warning. This is about.
We want to see them trousers start going, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is Oh well, look here. Yeah, it does. It's Okay. It comes with the pants. See, there's the trousers, the flares, right? This is called Two Fucking Donkeys.
You know, I'm sorry what to hear.
Yeah. It's rude. There was, language and concept warning. If you're under, like, probably a good mature age, then probably... There once was a donkey whose name was Billy, and he had a rather large donkey willy. And he met a donkey girl whose name was Vic, and she fell in love with Billy's big donkey dick. And this is what Donkey Vic said: "I love you, but I'll never give you head. It's so long it would come out my bum. Go right through me and then you'd come." But it wasn't all bad. They both had a fuck in the back of old MacDonald's donkey truck. They did it 4 times. The journey was far, but they ended up at the abattoir. These were the last words that Donkey Vic said. "I wish we'd stayed home and I gave you head. Instead of going in a truck just to have a fuck, you could have had a lick and I a good suck."
What a way to finish the show, guys.
Okay, yeah.
That poem is deadly.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. And that was written before I went away even, so yeah.
Did you write that recently?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we did hear it tonight.
Actually, it was over 2 weeks ago. It was before the last poetry night, so yeah.
I'm more knowledgeable now.
All right, yeah. So watch out, donkeys. All right, well, thank you very much for joining us, everybody, tonight in here and in Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere else. And I'll have to put make sure this is not listed as kids' content, of course. Yeah. Good night. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Have a great night.
Yeah. Oh no. No.
Suddenly realised
Good clean sex.